Well, good morning, good afternoon, good evening, everybody, wherever you are. Welcome to the UN Plant-Based Food Systems Summit Dialogue. And in this session, we're going to be talking about culture and festivals and how we can veganize our culture and festivals and the origin of some of these festivals and the meanings of these festivals. And we are joined by a distinguished group of people. So we have Giva Solana. Welcome, Giva.
Pleasure to be here.
And Andres from Peru.
Hi,
Welcome.
Celeste. Welcome. Thank you for having me.
And Reverend Beth Love from Santa Cruz. Pareen from India.
Hi, Dr. Rao.
And Kelly from Canada. This is an international group of people who have come together to talk about culture and festivals. And thank you, Jiva, for arranging this. Thank you for setting it up for us.
My pleasure.
Tell us, how did you get started in this? And what are you going to talk about now?
I got started because I am an advocate for the turkeys. Mm-hmm. And now the holidays in all cultures and traditions, the holidays are upon us. And the turkeys are the ones that are ending up on most tables. And I always feel terrible when this happens. And I feel terrible in the summer when the babies are being born. But I have a PowerPoint. Maybe we can just look at the PowerPoint and sure. That will explain a lot. And then we'll go from there. So I created this little PowerPoint. Ahimsa for the holidays. Ahimsa means is an ancient Indian principle of nonviolence with respect to all beings, all living beings. Ahimsa believes that all creatures, human and non-human, are sacred and no harm or violent acts should be done to them. So we'll go to the next slide. And every year in the USA alone, 250 million turkeys, along with millions of pigs, chickens, and other sentient beings, are being bred for the sole purpose of human consumption. And they have no idea.
Right.
They want to just live. They want to explore this new planet. They come onto the planet and they feel the sunshine and they play with friends and family. That's what they want to do.
Right.
And then they want to feel joy and peace and freedom and just live their lives and be mothers, like the one down there, little babies. And that's their life. That's their purpose. That's why they came to this planet. We'll move to the next one.
Right.
And here's what the humans have planned for them. And PETA in the United States stands for people. What is it?
For the ethical treatment of animals.
Yes, people that stand for the ethical treatment of animals. And they have done a huge publication and a huge scientific research on this. And they have found so many reasons why you don't want to have turkey for dinner or any feast. So the little thing is actually a hyperlink when you go back to the other slide. And
I see.
And so it will. You can go there at any time. We can put the link into the chat later on, and you can go there and we can see what they came up with. So one of the reasons. No, we'll go to the next slide. One of the reasons is that 50 million turkeys are being bred just for Thanksgiving. They're not just being born; they're being bred, and they're eaten every Thanksgiving, and the holiday is followed by 22 million turkeys at Christmas and 19 million at Easter. And this is what their life is like. We just looked at, the little babies who wanted to be free and play in the grass and everything. And this is what actually happens to them. They get put into cages and warehouses that are way too small, and they have no grass, and they don't even see their mothers. This is their life. So now we have holidays of peace, love, joy, and light and gratitude. That's what we're celebrating. We're celebrating Christmas and the Jewish Hanukkah and all kinds of other holidays. And it's a holiday of peace, love, joy, light, and gratitude. Now think about that.
Right.
We're celebrating, we are inviting friends and family, we are grateful, we feel peaceful, we feel joy, and yet we cost millions of this. This is our centerpiece on the table when we celebrate. Ew. Peace is not possible when sentient beings are suffering and being killed for the benefits of others. We cannot celebrate peace in the ahimsa way when we have a turkey in the middle of the table or any other animal, dead animal.
Right.
Yeah, the next slide. The next slide.
Yeah.
All over the world, we pray for peace. We spread love. There's little sense in praying or hoping for peace on earth when most people making that wish are part and parcel of the most violent, least peaceful, most unjust system on the planet and in all of history. We cannot kill tens of billions of animals each year just because we can, just because we like the way they and their secretions taste, and claim to be peaceful people seeking a peaceful world. We cannot extinguish life just because we can, just because we have the power to, and then shake our heads at wars between humans as if we oppose unnecessary violence. To do so makes us hypocrites. We cannot seriously claim to hope for peace while choosing violence multiple times each year. Stephanie Ernest wrote that, and I so agree with that. That really speaks to me. And I think the last slide.
Yeah.
So now how do we rewrite this story? How do we write a new story? Because I'm always an optimist. You know, I always want to have a positive outcome. So ahimsa for all, a story where traditions and cultural habits need to be changed. A story where all living beings are granted a life of happiness, joy, peace, and love. A story where every species and every life gets to celebrate. A story where true peace prevails in all hearts. And that's the last slide. We don't need to see the next one. So these are my questions. How can we create a story like that in all cultures and traditions?
Right. And that's the topic of this conversation, actually. And Reverend Love, you had something to share about this. Would you like to do that now? Let me add you.
She's
Beth, I
muted.
think you're muted.
She's muted.
You're muted. Yeah.
Sorry about that. Yes.
Yeah.
I said, here, Giva. Thank you, Dr. Rao. Thank you, Giva. We know what is happening, and we know what needs to be done. These words, we know what is happening and we know what needs to be done, are included in a letter to the future that's inscribed on a plaque that commemorates the first Icelandic glacier that was lost to the climate crisis. And after it says, we know what is happening and we know what needs to be done, again, in a letter to the future, it says, only you know if we did it.
Right.
We know what is happening. Anyone attending a UN event knows that we are in the midst of a potentially catastrophic climate crisis. And we know what needs to be done, right? We are here, those of us here at the UN Food Systems Summit, we know that we need to drastically reduce or eliminate greenhouse gas emissions from all sources or risk losing the very habitability of our Earth home. And even though the majority of the people in the world may believe that this is primarily or even only a problem caused by fossil fuels, those of us here understand that we won't be able to stay within our carbon budget without major reductions in emissions from food production. In order to survive, humans must address their unhealthy, unsustainable, wasteful, and inherently violent taste for animal flesh and secretions, as Gina so eloquently put. So what does this have to do with vegan culture and festivals? Everything, right? In order to transform cultures and traditions, celebrations, we have to examine why people continue to enact animal-based dietary patterns, even as this way of eating is destroying the habitability of our earth, but also destroying human health and leading to deadly pandemics, contributing to world hunger, killing and maiming innocent animals, and wreaking havoc on our human spiritual integrity. This is the one that is probably the most bothersome to me. When polled about their food choices, people say that they make their food choices based on, these are the top four: taste, convenience, health, and family. Family also includes culture, right? And there's an invisible assumption behind both the question and the answers. And that assumption is that people are making their choices in some kind of pristine setting based on preferences, will, and personal agency without influence from their environment or from their context. We know this isn't true, right? These are important factors for us as activists to take into account, but in order to understand why people who see themselves as caring and compassionate, everybody I know sees themselves as caring and compassionate regardless of their dietary choice, we need to understand why people who would never dream of hurting other living beings for their pleasure, nevertheless, regularly, unconsciously enter into contracts with others to exploit, maim, torture, and kill innocent beings on their behalf, even as that act destroys our home and takes us and all of lifekind down in the process. So, of course, one of the major contextual factors that we need to consider is the ideology of carnism that says that some animals are here for our pleasure. Some animals are here for us to eat, some are for entertainment. And we've been indoctrinated into carnism from infancy onward. So we know that there's also other influences on our personal choice. We've been corrupted by corporate influence, right? Our desires have been really warped by marketing. And even our taste buds have been corrupted through chemical manipulation, right? On behalf of the food companies, the reward centers in our brains have been hijacked. And then finally, our family and friend circles, here's where we get to cultures and celebrations and festivals, right? Our family and friend circles have been converted into powerful guardians of the dominant paradigm of carnism. And the formerly plant-centric diets of traditional peoples around the world have been colonized. So, we're up against something powerful, right? This is what we're up against. We're up against the unholy trifecta of industry groups, corporations, elected officials that's actually profiting off of all this destruction. And we know this too, don't we? And these are powerful forces, but they do not have the final say. As a new thought minister, I know that there is a powerful good in the universe. And this power is more powerful than culture, than traditions, than ideologies, and corporations. And according to my theology, this power is within us and all around us. It cannot do for us what it cannot do through us. So that's why we're here as revolutionaries, right? Our first strategy is we must ground ourselves in prayer, meditation, visioning, and faith building. I mean, Dr. Silas Rao, a model of faith and trust that we can do this thing. We must have the faith that we can do it or we can't move forward. It's ours to lead this plant-based revolution. So I have a couple of other strategies to offer in terms of additional strategies to help us transform meat-centered cultural events and celebrations into peaceful, sustainable practices. Since taste is the answer that's most frequently given on questions of food choice, we have to show people that there's no sacrifice needed. They should eat healthy, whole, sustainable, compassionately produced plant foods without sacrificing flavor. And the good news is that most traditional foods, some of these foods that are really important culturally, were originally plant-based, so we can get back to the roots, right? And then making beautiful and tasty food, that's not even only for cultures, but we must show people the possibility of eating in a way that's good for you, good for the earth, and good for all lifekind. And when we feed them really tasty, healthy food, that is a really essential part of supporting the shift to plant-based foods. And then the final strategy I want to share about today is shifting our diets to whole food plant-based. Now, since what I care about most is a habitable planet that our children can keep living on for ad infinitum, if people want to make incremental shifts, that's good. That's a go in the right direction. As Melanie Joy says, be as vegan as you can. And if you want to eat vegan junk food, if that's your way to get there, that's fine. But I'll tell you what, you're going to need to be able to rewire your brain and your pleasure center. And eating whole, healthy plant foods, over time, our brain's pleasure centers will actually no longer be attracted to products of violence and destruction. And we will release our addiction to meat and dairy. If we keep eating those junk foods that have the same kinds of flavor profiles and the same nutrition profiles, that's going to keep triggering those same pleasure reactions, and it's going to be harder to break the habit. So let's start craving healthy food. Let's give ourselves healthy food that is good for us, good for you, and good for all lifetime, so that we can claim the vibrant health and the beautiful earth that is our birthright. We can allow the healing power of plants to transform our bodies, our lives, and our relationship to the natural world. Thank you very much, and I so look forward to hearing from everybody else on the panel.
Wow. Thank you, Beth. That was powerful. And yes, and a big answer to my question, what can we do? We can eat healthy plant-based food. That's one thing we really have to do and can do to save everyone. And nobody has to die on the holiday. We all should celebrate together, including the animals. So I would love to hear from you other ones. Andres, you're in Peru. What do you have to say to all of this?
Well, when I was invited to this dialogue, to this panel, and you told me it was about how can we make nonviolent traditions integrated into the culture of in the countries that we are. The first thing I thought was there was this ancient ritual carried by the Incas like thousands of years ago. I can't really remember exactly when, but they did this ritual to the earth, a tribute to the earth that they called Pachamama. Okay, and what they did was they started to bring many foods in trays and just put them on the ground, make a circle around it, and the meaning that it had to them was that they thought that the earth was this entity that was hungry, and they wanted to provide the earth with nourishing foods, with good foods. So they brought all these food, mostly plant-based also. And that I thought about that tradition, and I was like, wow, I think we should do the same thing right now in this contemporary era. And what are the most nourishing foods? Of course, whole food, plant-based. And I do believe, in a sense, that via education campaigns, telling people that, hey, you're not doing an individual choice 3 times a day. You are punishing, you are paying, or you're being a participant in someone else's torture to have your food. So you have to start thinking, okay, am I asking animals to be tortured? No, I'm not. I shouldn't, and they can't give consent either. So what I'm hinting at is that we have to separate and tell people, make people understand what a personal choice is and a selfish choice is. Eating animals is obviously a selfish choice. I think we can all agree on that. And health is a personal choice. You can eat junk food. Okay, you can contaminate yourself with junk food, but if you're going to contaminate yourself eating junk food made of dead animals, that's not a personal choice. Okay, so that's what I have to say about that. I think that it's very important to tell people that we have that, to break down those myths that they think that they have to eat animals due to taste, convenience, habit, culture, because it's normal, because it's necessary, because it's natural. I think we can start to do educational campaigns, breaking down those myths. Okay, why do you think it's normal? Just because everybody else does it doesn't mean it's moral or morally viable. Okay, so I think, teachers, educators can start thinking about that, make groups, make NGOs, and start carrying out the learning curve that we have ahead of us.
Wonderful. So, Pareen,
Yeah, sorry, just one thing. The holidays also, because we invite our family and friends, we invite a lot of people, and we feed them the food we choose. So it's not only even us that are making this personal choice. We're choosing for everybody else at the table also.
right.
So the holidays are really a great opportunity to make a change. So,
Yeah.
Pareen, yeah.
Yeah, speaking of change, Pareen, it is always associated with change, right? The Diwali festivals, and so Holi. These are festivals associated with change in India. So how would we use that to transform to a plant-based food system?
Yes. Thank you so much. I want to start by saying how grateful and happy I am to be here and to engage in this conversation and share it on a global platform. So thank you for having me here. And Giva, I want to commend the effort with your ongoing campaign. And when it comes to change, I think that is the biggest thing that we need to be talking about as well. I will speak from the customs that I have grown up seeing. As a child, I used to ask my parents what the reasoning behind celebrating certain customs was. Why did we do this that way? Why are we pouring milk or water on the shivling? And I've always been curious about the understanding behind the customs, behind the traditions. And what I've come to learn is that these are very much intertwined with our moral teachings and imbibing a way of life within us from childhood that is caring, that is kind, and that is compassionate to all. What I've seen happening is also a kind of change, a different kind of change, that our celebrations tend to have been reduced to customs without really understanding and remembering or commemorating the reasoning behind them, why we're doing certain things, whether it is on Diwali or Tihar with our neighbors in Nepal, or whether it's Pongal or Govardhan Puja. Why is it that we're bringing the animals in and celebrating with them? We're decorating the animals, we're doing aarti for them or presenting prasad to them. It's also useful to remember why we're doing it, and then important to remember that the way we're doing it has also got to do with how we should be treating each other and our fellow earthlings throughout the year. And so ever since I went vegan, my parents also started thinking about it. And since 2018, I believe, without my having asked anything, my parents started celebrating Diwali in a fully vegan way. And I don't have any pictures to share on the screen, but I just found out this one picture from a few years ago. Now, this is some besan or gram flour barfi that my mother made at home. And then charnamrit that we made with coconut milk. And then there is just tilak and a little bit of rice and a little bit of, other stuff for the puja. which is anyway vegan by default. And then there are flowers and water and everything. When we come to think of it, all of our customs, they're all inherently vegan. And when we remember that their true purpose, which is to bring us all together and to teach us to be compassionate towards each other, we understand that the only way to do them is to honor all our fellow earthlings and to celebrate them by using just plants. And that's about it. Thank you so much.
Thanks, Pareen.
That's beautiful. Yeah, thanks, Pareen.
And one of the things that happens is that people have memories of, the types of foods they ate when they were growing up, the kind of food that grandma used to make, and these festivals get associated with those memories. So Kelly, how do we continue with those memories and without having to hurt animals? And I think that's your specialty, right?
Yes. Thanks, Dr. Rao and Giva, for inviting me on this wonderful panel. I'll share my personal story about how my successes and my failures in trying to find solutions in celebrating the holidays with my family, because like you said, Giva, it's about, you're feeding your family. And so my vegan journey started 8 years ago. And I was vegetarian at the time. And that was the first time I made a vegetarian meal for everyone. It wasn't strictly vegetarian. But I made all the food because I was the only one that was vegetarian in the family. But I had made a vegan meal. And everyone could not believe that it was vegan. And that was a huge win because that was a meal that everyone tried and liked. And I was able to carry that meal forward for every holiday since. And then I went vegan 7 years ago. And I was the only vegan in the family. So I did sit down and celebrate the holidays with them. And I would bring either tofurkey. We have this really great restaurant in Toronto that actually makes vegan turkeys. And so I brought that one year. And but I always felt wrong to be sitting there while everyone else was eating meat. And it was, and I felt very out of place. And then my husband and my son went vegan shortly, a little less than a year after. So now we were kind of in the majority because it was, and my daughter was vegetarian, but she'd eat vegan. She's pretty much vegan. So now we were like 4 people that were vegan to 3 people on my parents' side, my mom, my dad, and my brother. So I felt like I had a little bit more flex to kind of put my foot down on what I was comfortable doing. And I had heard of the Liberation Pledge, which is where you don't sit at a table while people are consuming dead animals. And so I took that pledge, and I'm the only one who took the pledge. But because of that, celebrations used to be had at my parents' house. And so the first year that I did that, I did not know how to say this to my parents. Holidays would come up and we wouldn't talk. And then less than a week before, they would, eventually ask what we're doing. And I just remember that first time I remember I was like, I can't say it. And so my husband had to tell my parents, we're not coming over. If you want to celebrate with us, you have to come to our place and it's going to be vegan. And they did. And it was very uncomfortable, but I bought every single vegan roast that I could find. I made food for 50 people just so I could have something for them, and it was great. It was just my mom and my dad. And, it was awkward because we'd never had a major celebration at my place as a vegan. But they did it. And then Christmas time, I tried to do the same thing. And they said, no. They said, we did one celebration vegan they wanted to have their turkey. So it was really disheartening, but I was like, I'm going to keep doing it. And so for the next few years, I had put up my foot down and said, I will not do that. And so for the next, and then that extended to my husband's family, because sometimes they don't live in Toronto where I am, but they came in. So when they wanted to come in and celebrate, they knew they were going to have a vegan meal. So for about 3 years, I managed to be successful in having that for Thanksgiving. And then my mom wanted to get involved because she knew I was taking on having to cook so much food, and that, you know, it's a stressful time, which is crazy. It should not be a stressful time. It's, you know, but it always is, right? So she wanted to help out. So that was like a really great opportunity for my mom to get exposure to vegan products, you know, because she'd have to go and buy like vegan butter or, you know, whatever else, right? So, so just getting them to shop for these products sort of normalized, you know, they can go and see how much, you know, vegan food is out there. And they switched. My dad actually had, until he passed, drank plant-based milk. And my mom does not buy butter. She buys vegan butter. So she always has it when I'm there. But then it's 4 years ago now. So yeah, so 3 years I did that. And then we found out that my father had cancer. And so I had to kind of reassess, you know, what all this meant to me, and, you know, how I was going to move forward and how this was going to affect my relationship, especially now knowing that my dad had a timeline on his life, right? So I abandoned it, you know, and said, I will deal with it, right? You know, but I still made the food, you know, and they would always eat my food, and they did, and they do at Christmas time. They always eat my food. Like I make very specific meals, and I bring it there all the time, and they always eat it. My dad's passed now, unfortunately, passed away last year, but my mom still eats it, you know. So, you know, it's definitely not for everyone to kind of do that, you know. I'm refusing to, you know, so I'm kind of, you know, and it's hard for me to kind of have reverted, you know, but I kind of had to assess, you know, what all of this meant. And, you know, once you have something like, you know, an illness in front of you, you have to kind of reassess, like, you know, what is your goal, right? You know, so yeah, you know, but I always, because I'm a chef and a caterer, I always put out holiday menus, and they're always vegan. And my mom always wants to come and help me make stuff. And if I ever do any catering around the holidays, like, she wants to help, right? So although she's not vegan, like, you know, I've managed to like normalize it, and it's not, you know, like she, you know, she's curious, and she continues to be curious. And so I can only hope that, that I can get her there eventually.
Yeah, it's a journey that we are all on, you know, and I'm happy to see that your mom is coming along for the journey, and she's helping you with it.
And I talked to her about like her foods, like that she's used to, because she grew up on the East Coast, and they have very specific foods and traditions. And so, so I veganize those foods to show her that you don't have to give up these foods. They can just be vegan, right? So that definitely helps as well, right? And keeping those comfort foods that we're used to around the holidays, and just showing vegan versions, and it normalizes the food, and it makes them easier to make that tiny switch in their head, right? You know, that I can do this.
Yeah, you brought up a really important point, normalizing it. That's it. We have to just keep going and normalizing it, because tradition means we've done something for a very long time. It's a tradition. And now we have to normalize another tradition. We have to write a new story. We have to create something new and normalize that. And then that will be the tradition. And Pareen, I think you said, you know, why are we actually doing this? Why are we actually celebrating it this way? How did it all happen? How did it all start?
Right.
And we have to, to kind
It's
of
a very
explore that.
important to go in. You basis for the sessions, and then you. So it's that which gets propagated, and not the routine of whatever, adding ghee to this or having this particular food at this time. Yeah. So it's fascinating how this transformation is happening right now throughout the world.
Yeah. Yeah, and I'm particularly thrilled because it is happening early. So, I mean, this year, many animals may still be killed, but people are aware now, and people won't buy them. And people will make different choices this year, and people will make different meals. And Beth, you showed some really amazing pictures of what can be done with vegan meals. And I know, Andres, you are an excellent chef too. You know exactly how to make food taste really, really yummy and good. And so people will do different things this year. And next year, corporate world will have an eye-opener, and they will not be able to produce all this animal food. So I think it's wonderful right now.
Well, just look what happened at like the Oscars and the Met Gala and all that, right? These are traditions, and just one person saying one thing, they're all plant-based, right?
Yeah.
So we can see how quickly it can happen too, right? By just like one person in a position of authority just asking for something different and getting it.
That's all it takes, just a little bit of knowledge to make traditions something really beautiful. Because most traditions right now involve speciesism, but with knowledge and understanding, just a little bit, we can turn them all around and denormalize speciesism and normalize veganism. It's really that simple.
Yeah.
And I also think, Kelly, with your story, I remembered I saw this infographic last month that explained in like 6 steps how speciesism is a cycle. You have the carnivore behavior, and at one point in your life, you're gonna confront the reality, and then you're gonna start having an internal conflict with yourself. But most carnists, at this point, go to the next stage. They start to incorporate soothing or blocking emotions, cognitive distortions. They don't see a pig, they see bacon. They don't see a turkey, they see meat. So they just go back to the carnivore ideology. But I always say there's someone always that is more eager to go vegan. So what I'm trying to say is that my relationship with my parents is, they know I'm vegan, and I always tell them, if you guys want to have lunch or dinner or breakfast, either come to my place or we can go to a vegan restaurant. And if they don't want to, I always say, there's always someone more eager to go vegan than them. And I don't like ineffective activism, because that depresses me a lot. So I always think about someone who would be more willing to have that meal with me and get them closer to go vegan. You know what I mean? And eventually my parents will follow along, because we see each other probably once a week. So I always talk to them about it, even if they will consider that piece of knowledge or not. I just plant that seed in their head, and then I move to other person that could be more eager to go vegan than them.
Yeah, I think about that curve that I think it's Simon Sinek has. I think it's theory of innovation of change, where you have like the early majority, the early adopters, and the laggers, the late majority. And that's exactly. I just kind of went like, my family's going to be the late majority, right? And like you said, and just focus on the people that I know are going to be the early adopters, or maybe the middle, and then because it's going to happen.
Because maybe the late adopters are in a stage where they feel that veganism is a threat to sort of their image, their self-image, the image that they project to others, and maybe they use those soothing or blocking emotions to sort of remain the same. Okay, I'm gonna keep living in my bubble until the mainstream becomes vegan, and then I will do it. We have to sort of accelerate that process.
Yeah. I think we are now reaching a stage where veganism is becoming more and more aspirational, that people want to be there. Because I saw an ad by V8, vegetable juice. They said the original plant-based drink, so so they want to boast that they used to be plant-based, which is a very good sign, right? So when market now promote that as the thing, so shows
There's
that
vegan commercials now, like more than I've ever seen. Like there's a Nor one where they talk about like how you can eat more plant-based by using, and I'm just like, they're everywhere. It's encouraging.
I think that's like another thing that's really important for us as activists is to look for those examples, because it is really easy if you just look at the statistics about how many people are eating plant-based versus how many who aren't, and the fact that meat eating is on the rise, and that even in the case of, for instance, dairy, which in the United States consumption has been going down for many years, but production is still level or going up because the government is subsidizing it. It's easy to get down, right? It's easy to kind of lose the faith. It's easy to feel really frustrated. And so I think for us to look for those examples of the changes that are occurring is a really great strategy for us. I don't know if people saw about the Millennium Restaurant in New York City, which is apparently one of the highest end restaurants in the world. And when they do something, it starts a trend. And last year they went plant-based. And if you want something to lift your spirits, read on the front page of their website the letter from the owner about why they did that. And it's just it's like people do want to be responsible. Like I have to keep that in mind all the time. People are caring, they're compassionate, they want to be responsible, don't want to be creating a mess. So there's reasons that people are continuing the patterns that they're continuing, and we have to bring as much compassion for them as we do for the animals. Really bring a lot of compassion, a lot of heart for people in their journeys, because transformation is not easy, and transformation within a context in which you're making a choice that is so countercultural, that is even harder. And so I'm always encouraging people that, take the steps you can and get support, because, it's, I people that I've taught before, that have taken my classes, done my programs, that have started making the shift or gone all the way to plant-based, when they come back for a visit or whatever, and I ask them how it's going, they say it's going really great at home. But, when I go out to my office, not so much anymore out to the office, but, when I'm with my family, when I'm at a restaurant, it feels like I'm swimming upstream. And I think we just really need to be patient with people. Each of us here has probably been on this journey for a little while. For me, it's super easy. I live in Santa Cruz, California. I can get anything I need. I've been vegan for 20 plus years, vegetarian for 20 plus before that. So for me, it's super easy, but it's really incumbent on me to remember that that's not the case for people who are making the shift initially, at least for most, and to just really be patient and compassionate with people.
Yeah, the pressure from families is just like, it's so intense. I see my daughter, because she's because we're animal rights activists, we go to slaughterhouses and we see what's there, and we tell our children what we see. Because our children are adults now, right? But even when they were teenagers, we told them what we would see, because they should know the truth of what it is that they were consuming. So my daughter knows exactly what goes into the dairy industry, which is, her struggle. And she's an activist. She knows all about it, and she'll educate her friends, and she'll get on her friends' cases, and she doesn't have dairy at home at all. But when she goes to her grandmother's house, she doesn't want to, she doesn't even, it's not even she doesn't want to inconvenience her. She doesn't even need to have it. It's just her image in her grandmother's eyes is just so strong that she caves, right? So it's it's
right.
it's still a really big topic in our families, even 7 years later. It's it's a struggle.
Yeah.
It is-
You're sharing,
Sorry.
Go ahead.
you're
Go ahead.
sharing is reminding me that one of the reasons that families give a lot of pressure, part of it is they want people to conform, right? Because if you're doing that cognitive dissonance that Andre was talking about, what you're doing is wrong, but you're going to go back to it. You're going to do some kind of accommodation to make it right. So part of it is like just our very presence as vegans is threatening to people who know that what they're doing is not in alignment with their values. But part of it is really honest to goodness fear, right? People are concerned that we're going to waste away, right? Relatives are afraid. I've had people say, "Oh, my granddaughter went vegan. How is she going to get enough nutrition?" It's like there's such a strong indoctrination. So part of it really is that people are dealing with their family's fear, and then also their family getting triggered into their own lack of integrity.
Right.
But I think for the holidays, it's especially difficult because people are like, oh yeah, we're going to have this turkey for the holidays. And, grandma is going to make the turkey and stuff the turkey. And it's part of the tradition. So it's harder, I think, in the holiday meal to change and make something different. So I think our task, if you want to speak, so is to show them what they can make. What are the options? What else can we do? How can we change it?
Right. I mean,
And
to me,
also stand our ground whenever we spread the message. Because when I do activism, I like to tell people straight up, baby steps are for babies. Okay, I can't control what you are going to do next, but I can definitely tell you that going vegan is easy. You can do it from one day to the other. But I can't control whatever you're going to do later. If you are going to end up doing gradual steps, that's outside of my control. But I want to stand my ground and tell you that it's a moral imperative to go vegan, because we have to respect other sentient beings. They have the neurological capacities shared with us to feel pain, and it's immoral to cause pain or be participant of an action that causes pain to someone that can feel pain. So it's really that simple, and that's the only sort of piece of information that you're going to need. But it's outside of my control, whatever you do with that.
right.
Very true. You just nailed it. That's great. Yeah. Ahimsa. That's true ahimsa.
Right.
Yeah. And true peace. The holidays of peace are coming up. So yeah, again, saying it again, we can only have peace if we do not do harm to any other sentient being.
Yeah, to me, the festivals and how we celebrate festivals is the core of the culture. That's the foundation. And so when we change that and we say that has to be nonviolent and truly nonviolent in every form, we're actually creating a new core, a new vegan world, a new plant-based food system. And I think it is absolutely essential that we do that now, because all signals are pointing to us having to change. So culture is how humans have always followed the herd. So we are the largest herd animal on the planet because we keep doing the same thing over and over. And but now I think it is about redirecting us into saving the earth, into regenerating life, instead of just blindly dominating and killing. And to me, sports is another one. We need to talk about, but that's a different conversation. Because in sports also we show off. We show off to say we are so much stronger than the animals. This is why we're taking the skin of a cow and beating it around, right, with a bat.
That's why I love things like Veg Fest.
And right.
because
Go ahead.
it's a yearly thing, and people see it, as like you said, it's a community thing, it's a culture thing, but it's an inclusive thing, so people can come to it, and they don't have to be vegetarian or vegan, and they come and they see all this amazing vegan food, and that allows their mind to shift as well.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, here, I don't know what holiday it is, but, first you eat and you're full of heavy meat and stuff, and your belly is like really heavy, and you're sitting on the couch and you watch a football game. That's the next thing you're doing on the holiday. So maybe it's time to do something different, go out and go to Veg Fest or do something that is vegan for the whole family. The whole tradition can change. We can still be together. I mean, the most important thing is to be together with the family and the friends. That's the most important thing. That's why we are getting together. That's what we're celebrating. So then we need to just find things that we all can do that are ahimsa. What are some suggestions you have that people could do?
I mean, as a species that claims to be evolving, we know that intelligence and ethics evolve hand in hand. So I think what you're mentioning, Giva, ahimsa is definitely an ethical principle that we should also apply constantly if we want to evolve. Because if we were stronger, if we claim to be stronger than an animal, it doesn't make any sense that we dominate that animal or we put that animal into submission. It would make more sense that we took care of the animal.
Right.
A stronger species would do that. Only a coward would abuse someone else.
A bully.
Yeah. Exactly.
Love
so
it.
I think that's what we should aspire to be.
Yeah, and then thinking that it is really the least we can do. So before getting into it, if we tell ourselves that, oh, this is a huge change that I need to make, or it's going to be so difficult, or how am I going to change everything, just get into it without having a think about it. And then in retrospect, so when I look at the past 4.5 years, could the Pareen about 5 years ago have ever imagined? Could the meat-eating, dairy-consuming Pareen have ever imagined this? No. But had I let myself be bogged down by the gravity of even imagining what was going to the next few years, would I have been able to do it? Perhaps not the same way. So knowing that this process is not really about bringing in something new, but it's more about coming home to our compassionate selves.
Right.
And then when we do it knowing that, it becomes so easy. And then, yes, a few years later, pat on your back that you've done something big.
So you are recommending to everyone to just jump into the pool and try it out, right? Try out this compassionate festivals and culture.
Yes.
So
Yeah, and one thing we can all do with our families and friends is we can help out. We can help on a farm, or we can help animals, like you just said, Andres. That would be a good thing to do all together. We can take care of some animals and help some people that are running farms, like rescues. I mean, like rescue farm, not farms, but rescues, sanctuaries. We can help them because they want a holiday too. And the best holiday would be if we take care of all the animals that they have rescued.
Yeah.
So
on that note, so it's so wonderful. We are running out of time. So thank you so much for being here. It's an amazing conversation. And I think we are on the cusp of something amazing. So
I agree.
Awesome.
Thanks, everyone.
Thanks.
It's
Thank you,
wonderful.
everybody.